Hello, I'm Cassie Baloue. I am Miss DC USA, and this is my interview with the Pageant Project.
Good evening, everyone. It's Adrian from the Pageant Project. My special guest for today is Cassie Baloue, who is the somewhat newly crowned Miss DC USA 2023. Cassie, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. I am very enthusiastic to be on tonight at 9:30 Eastern Time. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Not at all. It's a pleasure. Some mutual acquaintances of ours behind the scenes help set this up, so I'm grateful for that. First question I have to ask, look, congratulations, first off. But secondly, I guess, has it sunk in? And thirdly, how sleep deprived are you right now?
I don't know if it's fully sunken in yet. It's only been like, almost it'll be to like 3 weeks this coming weekend. Someone mentioned that the other
Yeah.
yesterday. They're like, "Oh, it's almost 3 weeks," and I was like, "3 weeks? It feels like it's been shorter than that." I am pretty sleep deprived. On top of the pageant, I have a full-time job. And prepping for pageant in general is just like, so much work. And it's not even
Yeah,
just the physical work, it's the mental work,
of
mentally
course.
preparing your mind to like get on stage, to perform, to not pay attention to any of your competitors and just to stay kind of tunneled focused to the crown. So it's a lot, but I'm so thankful that everything worked out the way that I planned and prepped for. But yeah, so it's just a
I
lot,
think
but a
uh,
good amount.
I think most of the viewers will be familiar, being most of them being pageant girls, will be familiar with what pageant prep is like. Obviously, not everyone is familiar with what winning the title is like, especially when it's a big title such as a state title for Miss USA. So can you just, I mean, it has been 3 weeks, not been 3 days or 3 hours. It has been 3 weeks, coming up to a month. Can you just describe what has it been like since you found out that you were Miss DC USA? What has life been like?
Yeah, so you know, right after, like, I still watch my crowning video. I think I watch it at least once a day because I'm still just reminding myself, oh yeah, like this really happened. Because even after they called, because they called the first runner up, that's how you
Got
figure
it.
out who won, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember looking at my competitor, and I was just like looking at her like, okay, so is it you or is it me? And I think I actually pointed at, I was like, is it me? And she was like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's you. And I like collapsed into her arms. I'm so thankful. Her, like Cleo, her name, she's so kind, so phenomenal. I'm so glad that she caught me because I really did collapse in her arms. And I was just like, all the emotions just started rushing. And, my coach taught me how to like, pretty cry when this happens, but I don't even think, I don't think I pretty cried at all. I think I was just like bawling of like emotions. um but it's just really crazy because I'm so thankful to have like so many wonderful people even people coming out of the woodwork, like family members,
Mm,
friends from a long time ago, and people are just happy for me. And it's just really heartwarming to know because you put so much stuff on social media, but you don't necessarily know
yeah.
like if people are paying attention. But
Yeah.
so many people have been telling me like, hey girl, I've been following you, and I'm just so happy for you and thankful that you were able to get the crown. So I think that's just been probably one of the best things about it, is just seeing like how many people have
Mm,
actually been following my like journey, because I competed 3 times. This was my third time. And I was able to win. But like that has just been the best. And people just reaching out, wanting to like be a part of my team or help me, because it really takes a village, I feel like, to get here. Girls who are able to do this on their own, I applaud you. But being able
mm.
to have so many people like be a part of this and support me has just been, I'm just so thankful.
We've got your crowning video playing
Yeah.
to the side of us, and I didn't get to watch it live, and there's no words in the video. It's just a soundtrack, which I've had to mute because otherwise we get flagged for copyright. But I was going to ask you, did you not know it was you? Because your initial reaction is one of confusion.
Yeah.
And then it looks like you about had a cardiac event going on there, and then
Yeah.
it finally hit you, and then the crying began to. So when they called first runner up, obviously there's that moment of time, that split second when you weren't sure what was going on. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, because like I said, I really have only been doing pageants for 3 years, like three. No, it wasn't 3. It hasn't been 3 years. It's only been like since 2021, right? So
Wow. Okay.
three pageants is how many I've competed in.
Yeah.
So, and I've never been at like we're at the stage where you're holding hands and you're trying to figure it out, So and I also just was like, I didn't want to like assume it was me. I think
Yeah.
I think I'm like, emotionally scarred from, you remember the universe when Steve Harvey called the wrong girl? No shade to Steve Harvey, but like, remember that happened? You just don't want to like get excited in case something happens. So I was just like, wanted to confirm. So I just looked at her. I was like, okay, can you just confirm that? And she's like, yeah, you did. And I was like, okay. But yeah, I just like had a moment of, just a shock because, during prelims, like after prelims, I didn't feel as strong as I, like you practice in the studio and everything, and you feel really good, but then you get on stage, and I always get nerves when I'm on stage, and that's one of my battles with competing is I have to learn to fight through those nerves. And so, I told myself, okay, after prelims, if you make it to finals, then you need to like cut any feelings of nerves, and you like this is the time that you need to apply everything that you've been doing in practice. And so I think that was a little bit of it. It was just like, wow, I was really beating myself up after prelims, but here I am, like, they called me. So it was just really validating, because I think, sometimes we can be our biggest critics, and it's important to give ourselves grace. And so I think that was the biggest lesson I took away from the win is like, take a minute to appreciate, how much I've done. And, that's something I hope to do with my crown, is to teach that to other girls. This weekend, I actually have the opportunity to speak in front of 300 people for this Girl Power event, where I'm going to be speaking to high school students and middle school students. They're all girls, and they're all girls of color. So I'm just going to be able to have a really great opportunity to share my story and teach them the importance of not letting yourself get, too focused on your errors, your flaws, but just learn to overcome that.
I think it's always interesting. I mean, I've interviewed north of 300 pageant queens over the past 5 or 6 years, and to me, it's very interesting that, and it's part of the human condition, I'll get your thoughts on this, but it doesn't matter how big the crown is or how glamorous the girl looks, especially on Instagram, being a highlight reel. But we all seem to be battling with our own doubts. I mean, you've identified that you were nervous, yet from everything I've seen, your life is extremely busy and productive and fruitful, and you've accomplished a lot. Especially, I was looking at the digital press secretary, and like, wow, I didn't know that was a thing, but that must be a very full-on job and very fulfilling, I imagine. I did a Google search on your name. I don't know if you've ever done one, but one of the photos that came up was of you. I think you were at a political lecture from back 10 years ago. I don't know if and I was just looking at it, and you had some sort of lecture, but can you speak a little bit as to what your journey through pageantry, and even before that, like what led you to go into pageantry, and then what lessons have you learned? Because to accomplish as much as you've accomplished, one would assume that, okay, this girl can't be lacking confidence. She must be, she must be pretty, confident in her beliefs and her abilities. Yet there's always that little seed of doubt, isn't there? So what has your journey to the crown been like?
Yeah. I love talking about this because I think it really just, it shows a side of what people don't see, because like you said, what you see on social media, you see someone who's very confident, outgoing, out there doing all this stuff, but you have to build to get there. And I think that's always important to share, because to assume that you just naturally get there is not really fair, especially for people who don't have the same accesses to like get there initially. But, you know, I got into pageantry growing up. I used to watch Universe all the time with my mom. She's Trinidadian, and you know, we used to get very excited to see like who Miss Trinidad Universe was going to send. You know, that was just like our small thing growing up in the States, being able to connect with, you know, part of our culture back home. So over time, you know, I paid more like closer attention and didn't just see like beautiful women. You know, I paid attention to like the foundations and the community advocacy and the ways that they were bettering their countries and their communities. And I think my turning point where I like got really, really focused about it was when Catriona Gray won. I know, like I just fell in love with her walk and her confidence, and you know, the way that she carries herself, and learning about the things that these women do in government, because I have a passion for, you know, political advocacy. Gotten my bachelor's in political science. So finding a way to like merge the two, like being an advocate for my community, but also like being like, you know, a beautiful like fashion, you know, a role model for other women, to embrace their beauty, embrace who they are. And so like I moved on, went to college. My background, Caribbean, we're very like, you know, education, get your education first. You know, you need that safety net, so that you can pursue your goals. And it wasn't until I moved to Washington, D.C. after graduation. I remember I was watching Chelsea Christ on at Universe, and I remember just thinking how beautiful she was. You know, as a woman of color, I don't really see that many women who look like me in certain spaces. So to see someone like her in that space was just so inspiring. And like all the wonderful things, like her amazing accolades. So seeing that, I was just like, you know, this is something that I really want to pursue. And so I took it upon myself to enter into, my first one ever was the Miss Virginia USA pageant. I did it because I live in Arlington, Virginia. And, you know, I thought you had to compete where you lived. So that's why I did it there. And, you know, it was a great experience. I had 3 months to prepare, which is not enough time, but you know, it was a hustle. It was a hustle. I definitely think that girls should take a lot more time to prepare, but you know, it's still good to get your feet wet, because practice makes perfect. And you know, my overall experience there was just like the girls were really kind, really nice. You know, one of the things that people think about pageants is like, you know, there's mean girls and all this like, you know, cattiness, but it really wasn't that. I walked away feeling very inspired. You know, I was thankful to make top 16 with only 3 months of prep against girls who, you know, have been doing this their whole life, or longer. So that was really great. And I remember getting off stage and I turned to my coach and I was like, she's like, how do you feel? And I'm like, I'm doing this again next year. So, you know, how I got into the DC pageant system was because I learned that since DC is not really, well, it's not really, but like DC is not a state. You can go to school and you can work there in addition to living there to be able to compete in that pageant system. And so I decided to do DC because the whole reason I moved from California to DC was because of DC, the DC area, and because I work on Capitol Hill, and that's where my network is, and that's really my passion is. And so I did that one last year. That was my first time ever, and I had like a lot more time to prep, which was really good, because those, like, DC doesn't have as many girls as like, you know, Florida or New York may have, but we have quality. I would say quality over quantity. Like I remember thinking like there were girls in med school, lawyers, in the military, you know, girls who wrote books. So it's just like really inspiring, like to
Mm.
be in spaces where there are people who have, who challenge you. I read something today. It's like, if you're in a room where you're the smartest person in the room, like you're in
You're
the
in the
wrong
wrong
room,
room.
you
Yep.
know? And I think that is so important. Like you need to put yourself in situations that make you uncomfortable so you can grow. And that's that's how I walked away. I walked away feeling like, this is really, it's turned into a lifestyle. It's not just
Mm.
about, turning on pageant girl. Like, oh, I have a competition in a few months. I need to start doing stuff towards my platform. I need to start working out. I need to start being in the community and like, volunteering.
Mm.
It's really about like you're actively doing this is something that you're truly passionate about. Cause the judges, the feedback I've gotten is like, they are looking for someone who is authentic, someone who is
Mm.
real, not someone who just kind of turns it on for the cameras and turns it off. So, it's a process.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was very introverted growing up, but because I knew I wanted to be a leader, I had to like challenge myself, like to go out of my comfort zone, and pageantry was one of those like stepping blocks to something that has benefited me so much in my career on
Mm.
Capitol Hill as a digital press secretary. I tell myself, like when I'm doing interviews or whenever I'm talking to politicians or high profile, like, members or people, international ambassadors who come to this country, I just talk about like, I think, I was on stage in a bathing suit in front of my family, being judged in front of strangers. If I could do that, then I could talk to this member of Congress fully clothed about important issues. They say like, imagine like people in the room naked or whatever. Like, I feel
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
it's like similar like that. Like you've already been in a even like
Yeah.
more like vulnerable state.
Yep.
So you should be comfortable talking to this person who is still a human, even though they are like a high profile legislator. So just that confidence building and like using my voice and being able to like walk into a room and command the room, not just by like physically being there, but like having something to say and using my voice.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I'd have to say that.
I was just before I interviewed you, I was listening back to when I interviewed your director, and it's almost a year to the date, and that was when Chelsea had just taken on the directorship, so she was about to run DC USA for the first time, and I guess this would be the third iteration. So she's been director about as long as you've been competing, but
Right.
she said the first time she competed and she got on stage, and her father was there and she got on stage. She was an army brat in her bikini. And she said there was no more sort of mortifying or like embarrassing moment in her life. But because her father obviously watched her compete, and her father completely flipped to the biggest pageant dad you can imagine. It's like, oh, what can we do to win? What can we do for this? So I'm sure that she would understand where you're coming from. And I was listening to the interview I did with her, and I asked her, who are you looking for in a title holder? And the thing that really came through was that she was looking for someone who knew who they were. There had to be a certain element of self-awareness, not someone who was simply looking to fit the mold, but actually knew who she was and what she what she stood for, and what she was aiming for in life. Now, you've already said that you were, introverted growing up, and you mentioned Chesley Christ, who obviously unfortunately passed away, someone who looked like she had everything from the outside, but obviously was battling some very significant demons on the inside. So just in terms of your path going from being introverted to now being, Miss DC USA, which you can't, hide away. That would not be part of the plan. You have to be pretty out there, and some people are going to judge you, and they won't judge you kindly. What has that path been like? Has it been a struggle in particular for someone who used to be quite introverted?
Yeah, and I think a way that I've broken out of my like being feeling introverted is because before I got into modeling, I
Mm.
model with a DC company called Kingsley Model Management. So being in front of the camera, being photographed constantly, and sometimes I've had opportunities to be on the news, which has been really
Mm.
great, has really helped, break out of that shell. But I have to say that it is important to like learn what you stand for, but for me, I had to like, I really had to kind of take steps to getting there.
Yeah.
One day I remember earlier in January when I was meeting with my coach who helped me prep for Miss DC USA, she sat me down and she was like, so, asking me these questions of, why do you want to be Miss DC USA? Like, what are you doing to like work for this crown? What is your platform? What do you stand for? What are your values? All these kind of like really very targeted like questions that have to do with like who I am as a person.
Yeah.
And, we maybe like think we know these things, but like to actually be able to communicate that in a like concise way,
Mm.
especially for pageants when you only have 3 minutes to make a big impact on,
Yeah.
5 judges
Yeah.
is hard. Because
Yep.
you have to sound like yourself. And uh, after that night meeting with my pageant coach, I drove home and I was sobbing, I was crying, and I just kind of
Got it.
felt defeated because I did not know how to answer those questions. I had
Mm.
spent months like practicing my walk, doing photo shoots, working out, focusing on the exterior part of Cassie.
Yeah.
So when I got those questions about like, who is Cassie? Like, what does she care about? Why should she be a leader? Why does she deserve this title? I couldn't
Mm.
answer. And I was like, what have I been doing this whole time? like I can't just stand up there and look pretty. Eventually they're gonna want me to talk. So,
Yeah.
I had a mental breakdown for sure. And it took about 24 hours, a lot of crying to my boyfriend. So bless him for being so patient and hearing me out. But after that, I kind of like I was like, okay, like I rolled up my sleeves and I wrote out a strategy plan. I wrote
Mm.
out my platform, and that was like going to be my anchor. And my platform is cancer awareness. I decided like, why is this important to me? What am I going to do with the title to continue to advocate for cancer awareness? What am I trying to bring to this organization? What is the type of legacy that I want to leave? This Miss DC USA is like very big on legacy, and I love
Mm.
that because I think it's important that we don't just do something while we have the crown, but we do something that
Yeah.
the former queens can maybe take over, that the organization can be known for, and that you can continue to do after the crown. Because it
Mm.
really, it's not just about winning. It's about like, how are you going to continue to better yourself, better those around you as you get older? So, just being hard on yourself. Because like I said, being like kind of surfing through life and not having to deal with any like harsh questions and
Mm.
challenges, you really don't grow. And so I think at that moment in January was a big turning point for me, because that's when I had action items that I think really pushed me over this
Mm.
year compared to the previous year. Because last year I would say I kind of focused more on the exterior.
Yep.
But this year I felt like when I went into my interview, I was very confident in myself. I felt like, the questions that they asked, I didn't walk away feeling I didn't answer them. I didn't walk away feeling like I wish I had said something else. I feel like I
Mm.
gave them like in 3 minutes, I gave them like a little bite of me from all angles.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're trying to get. They're trying to figure out like how well can she express herself and communicate about, what it is she wants to do, and like the good that she can bring to this organization.
Yeah, the self-awareness and then communicating it in 3 minutes. It's almost two separate challenges. I mean, first of all, I have to agree with you. I don't think self-awareness, like, I don't think you ever, especially at your age of only 25, I don't think you want to be thinking, yes, I know who I am and this is who I'm going to be for the rest of my life. And I'm completely certain and nothing's ever going to change. Because I know many people who go through their entire life who never really find out, who they are. Because it's, as you said, it's almost through those difficult times that you really find out who you are. But for you, was the struggle, because I've met girls, I've coached girls with two distinct issues. One is they don't know who they are. And for that, I say, you got to go out and try as many different things as you can. And you got to take some knocks and then get back up. That's when you really find out who you are. But on the other hand, some people do know who they are. And it's just difficult to express it especially in 3 minutes under pressure
Right.
when you're trying to get all these other facets of your life into it. So for you, was it a struggle more knowing, was it more the self awareness that was a struggle? Or was it the fact that you have to kind of, compress 25 years, 2.5 decades of life into almost 2.5 minutes? Or was it a bit of both?
I'd say a bit of both, and I agree with you. Like being able to like say yourself and like what you want to do in 10 years and stuff
Mm,
was a very big challenge for me because
yeah.
I've always felt that I don't take the straight path in life. I kind of feel around. I went against the grid compared to like what my siblings did,
Sure.
which was hard for my mother
Right.
because she was
I
always
can
concerned.
understand.
I'm the youngest, so it's also that's into play. Um, but I think that when I decided that I was going to stop caring so much about what other people thought about my decisions, especially in terms of my career, that's kind of when I was like the most liberated because
Hmm.
at that point it was just like, what is going to make Cassie happy, and like what is she going to do to set herself up for success?
Mm,
Um, so learning about what it is that I wanted to do with pageantry and things like that was very difficult because it's like not one thing. They ask you, what's your dream job and all this stuff.
yeah.
And it's like, this is my dream job, but like, I don't know, maybe like a door can open and then
Yeah.
this opportunity can present itself. And then, my dream job turns into something else.
Yeah.
So it's just like, you're trying to kind of create a path for your life, even though you haven't
Yes.
lived it yet.
Yeah.
And so that's like the challenge for girls who don't necessarily have everything planned out.
Mm,
But I think that's okay because I think that, we shouldn't be the same. Like shouldn't be the same person I am right now, 10 years from now.
good point.
I I would hope that I have grown more, that I've become
Yeah.
wiser, that I have, increased my wealth. But it's just like one of those challenges, and then you have to like compress all that into 3 minutes. You know, is just one thing that I will never understand because truly I will have like people always ask me, like pageants don't seem that difficult. I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about, respectfully. Um
That does seem to me, as someone who's interviewed for a living, I keep saying that would be the part I struggle with most because I'm one of those people. Like you, if you ask me what do you do? That's like there's no way I'm going to be able to answer that in 3 minutes. It's like how long do you have? Um,
right.
and it's really interesting that you bring up I think we're in an age now, well, not just young women but young men as well, there there is no set career path. For some people there is, like I want to be
Mhm.
a lawyer, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an accountant. And so within reason there's a path of study, right? And then you do a certain amount of internship, etc., etc., etc. But even in those fields, the world is changing so quickly and there are so many careers open now that didn't exist 10 years ago. Like I got to imagine digital press secretary didn't exist 15 years ago, because there wasn't any such thing. Well, what's social media? Because that's just when it was about to come out. And it can be a really scary, if that's the right word. It can be very rewarding as well, but it's a scary time because your parents will say, oh, just go and do this. But they, with respect, come from a different age where it was much more A, B, C, D, E. And now we're living in an age where you see people who are creating careers and you go, I didn't even know that was a thing. Like you have
Right.
full-time YouTubers, full-time TikTokers, and you see how much you're getting paid. And you're like, but what do you actually do? And it's like, oh, I create videos. And like you get paid for that. Um, so can you just, I mean, let's go to the digital press secretary, because as I said, I've never heard of that term. Obviously, press secretary I had. I didn't know there was such a thing as digital press secretary, but that seems like it's one of those newer careers that you almost, I mean, not that you would pretend to know what you were doing if you didn't, but it's almost like you'd be putting the tile in front of yourself as you go, because it's not been around long enough for people to go like, oh, 100 years ago, this was how they were doing it. So digital press secretary,
Yeah.
how did that come about and what does it actually involve? Be fascinated.
Yeah, you're right. It is a new title, like a newer title. I got into it working for my boss right now on Capitol Hill because I handle like his social media. I handle
Yeah.
his, I support the communications director. We are a press team of two. And I kind of just like take over like the digital aspects,
Yeah.
as well as like supporting my comms director for the traditional press stuff, like, possibly writing scripts, helping communicate with reporters to get him on the news and
Sure.
stuff like that. But, it's been a really, really wonderful opportunity because I get to work for a member who has such a wide audience.
Mm.
And like he's not just doing it on his own, he's doing it like because he really cares about these issues, and that's like what I think is the most like passionate for me.
Mm.
But I kind of like stumbled into like working on the Hill because how I got there was I did an internship during my undergrad, my junior year. And I came out to DC and I was like very like strict about wanting to like work at a news broadcast
Mm.
company in DC. But my advisor was like, maybe you should consider, since you like politics, you like communications, working on Capitol Hill. And, I was like, why would I want to work on Capitol Hill? Because the outside looking in, you just see, a bunch of very like older
Yes.
politicians.
Yeah.
It's very male, predominantly Caucasian dominated.
Yeah.
So, that's just like the outside looking in, with no prior information about Capitol Hill. But, when I went, I got to intern for this Congresswoman Barbara Lee, who represents a part of California where I'm from. And it was just like the most amazing opportunity. I fell in love with the Hill because the Hill is really run by, in addition to the legislators, these young staffers, like aging from, the interns are at college, sometimes graduates, maybe even high school, but like they're like they're in their like 20s, they're in their 30s. I feel like
Oh wow.
the last office I was in, the medium age was like 27 maybe, which
Wow.
is pretty kind of crazy because like, what you see on the news, you don't really see young
You
faces,
don't
but
see
like
that. Yeah.
exactly. But like, the chief of staffs tends to be like a little bit older. But, right now, my chief of staff, she's like 28 and she's
Wow.
phenomenal at her job.
Yeah.
And I really like look up to her because I'm just like, wow, you are a chief of staff for a very high profile member.
Mm.
And you are only 28. Like, we're not that far apart in age. So, it's just been really rewarding. And like I said, one of the things I love about it is because I'm like constantly around history.
Mm.
Last week, the president of South Korea came and he spoke
Wow.
to
Okay.
Congress in a joint session. And I was privileged enough to be able to physically go and watch him speak to members of
Wow.
Congress. And so it was just like stuff like that, it's just
Yeah.
really like I was sitting there and I was just listening and I just kept looking around the room. They take your cell phone, so you can't take any like the
Selfies or
area I was
TikTok
sitting at.
videos.
Right. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, I couldn't snag a picture with
Sure.
the president of South Korea, but it was fine because I was really just sitting there and I was just soaking it in. I was just so thankful to be there. Like
Yeah.
I said, like there are not that many minorities on Capitol Hill. We've come a very, very long way though,
Yeah. Yeah.
in terms of representation. But I was just like had like pride and just feeling like so thankful, to be American, to be, a woman of color, and just to be like witnessing history. And it's stuff like that it's just constantly rewarding, in addition to being able to like advocate for my communities about like
Yeah.
social issues that matter. And what I love about my job is like there isn't a day that always looks like the next. Like there's always something new because there's always breaking news, there's always new bills being introduced, there's always new issues presenting themselves. And what I love about my member is he's constantly speaking out on these issues. And that's something that I learned from him because, what I've been hearing a lot about this organization, the Miss USA, the Universe
Mm.
organization, is that, we're not here to model. We're not here to just stand there and look pretty. We are here to use our voice, and to speak on issues that affect women, speak on issues that matter,
Mm.
and, call out these things in a like respective way.
I I think it's very. I mean, I completely agree with you. You're certainly there to use your voice, and the political climate, not just in America but around the world. I've noticed that there's more and more young women who are taking an interest in politics, which I think is an amazing thing because it really stems from a desire to make change and to help make the world a better place. As
Yeah.
cliche as that might sound, the issue that I have is that the political climate, no matter which side of the spectrum you come from, it seems to me to be so divisive and such a hot topic most of the time that you are often scared to say anything because you're just going to be, they won't even hear what you say. All they will see is which side of the spectrum that you come from. And if you're from the other side of the spectrum, it's immediate attack mode. They don't listen to your argument, as cogent as it might be. They just basically slander you as a person. And to me, that's not what I would say is my natural milieu. It's like to go in and confront everyone and start yelling at everyone. That's not how I was brought up. I always believe like if we can work together, that's better than dividing. But it seems like in the last few years, it's become very, very divisive. Now, I guess first question is that because you're obviously working in the Hill, on the Hill. Has that struck you at all? Does that seem like an accurate kind of reflection that it can seem quite divisive at the moment?
Yeah, I think that's 100% accurate, especially, for our country in like the recent years. We are
Mm,
very polarized politics. You know, I try not to speak politics too much with people who I know who may have opposing views, just because people are easily offended.
yeah,
It's hard to have conversations now, which is kind of scary because when we stop having conversations with each other, we're not able to
exactly.
understand, we're not
Yeah,
able to, be empathetic. Um, that's one thing that in my paperwork for my pageantry was, how would you describe yourself like in one word? And one of the
mm,
words I used was empathy. I think it's really important for leaders to like remain empathetic because it's important that you can connect and understand,
mm,
because you need a certain members number of members to pass legislation,
of course.
and sometimes when you don't have those majorities, like you need to be able to bridge the gap, you need to be able to reach across the aisle. Like especially issues that seem like no brainers, that seem like
Yeah,
this is an obvious issue and there is a clear solution to what we should do.
yeah,
But unfortunately that's where politics takes over. That's where misinformation, and I would say that is the biggest problem in this country right now,
yeah,
is misinformation and how it's being weaponized to
mm,
discredit truth.
yeah,
And that's something that we really need to have our politicians come together on, is just like, can we just be in agreement about like the facts? Like, if there's recordings of things being said, of like actions being happened, can we just
yeah,
allow that to set the precedence, and not change and manipulate narratives, for political agendas? Because, we don't win as a country when we're divided. We stand
yeah.
stronger when we're together.
Do you, I mean, this sounds like a terribly pessimistic question, but take it for what it's worth. Do you realistically see that happening in the near future where the country really can come together? Because you say one of the big issues, and I agree with you, is misinformation. I think piggybacking off that, I think one of the big qualities that's missing is the ability to not only welcome but encourage constructive debate, not just arguing and yelling at one another, but actually saying, "Hey, this is what I think. You think differently. Let's talk." Not that you want
Mhm.
to convince the other person, but you actually want to see where they're coming from because they might know something that you don't, and they have experience that you don't. But the other thing that seems to be missing is the critical thinking. Is like where you see something, you're told something, but you just swallow it as though it's truth without actually thinking about, hang on, that does that make any sense? But to go back to my question, it seems so divisive at the best of times. And you would know this better than me, that sometimes it just seems like, well, let me just leave that hot potato well enough alone. Let me do something else. Because do you see that kind of environment changing in the near future?
I don't know if I would say near future, but I am hopeful. You have to stay optimistic, and I think that's really important because if we lose hope on being able to
Mm,
work together, you know, that really will be the downfall of like our democracy and our like any sort of bipartisanship.
mm,
But I think that, it's just really important that we eliminate these like disparities in the way that we communicate. One thing that my boss talks about is like every member of Congress represents people from different backgrounds, different life experiences, and that's like what shapes the way that they think, the way that they feel, their values, even like religion plays a huge
yeah,
role in things.
of
And,
course.
even though we say religion separate from the state, it
Yeah,
always finds a way to come in to play, especially with, certain issues like women's health.
of course.
This is something that is being challenged, and unfortunately, in certain states, it's being banned, it's being taken away, and you know, I think that we have to continue to speak on this issue, continue to share the stories of, you know, what women go through and the importance that of having control over your own body. It should this decision is a difficult one, and it's not one
Mm,
that should be decided by men. It's not one that should be decided by politicians. It's one that should always rest with women. And so I think that's like one of the stickiest issues right now that we're
mm,
dealing as a country, and one that is like so like one like you're either on this side or on that side.
yeah,
There's no
yeah.
middle. There's no compromise. Um, but like if we stop having these conversations, then we're not going to get to a place of
Yep.
compromise, of balance. But it's also one of those things where it's like, why should women have to compromise on being able to control their body?
Mm,
So it's really a balancing act, and unfortunately, it's a political issue, when it's
yeah.
really just a health issue. So it's yeah, it's just one of those things that I'm going to try and speak on as much as I can, because I believe that, you know, this is something that affects women in every walk of life, in
Of
every, like, no
course.
matter your socioeconomic background, your, identity. It's just really important that this rests with women.
How much of a struggle is it going to be for yourself? And I've spoken to a few US based queens recently, and that, as I said, they have an avid interest in politics. But pageantry is famously supposed to be apolitical or unpolitical, which I can see why. Because as someone described to me, it's like, well, you want to make sure you're representing both sides of the aisle, so to speak, which
Right.
I totally understand. You don't want to contribute to the divisiveness. But on the other hand, my point is that pageant queens should be leaders, especially when you get to holding a title as big as yours or even bigger Miss USA. And I think you can only be a leader if you have a well thought out opinion on really important matters. I don't think you can call yourself a leader if you don't have an opinion on these things, because that's how you lead. And we need leadership on the difficult matters more so than the easier, let's say, matters. So, how difficult is it going to be for you to balance? Obviously, you're super enthusiastic about pageantry. You've done magnificently well, and you've got Miss USA coming up. That's a huge passion. On the other hand, you have this other passion, and you sometimes are told can't mix those two. That has to be a challenge, no?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's actually funny you say that because, when I got into pageantry, I was kinda like, "Should I talk about what I do? Like, should
Yeah.
I should I, like, try and, like, veer away from it. Even on Capitol Hill, I was like, should I talk about being in pageantry like to coworkers, or should I kind of hide that side of me? But I just decided like, they're looking for someone who's authentic, who is secure in
Yeah.
themselves. So I like hiding a part of myself is not going to help me win this pageant, and it's not going to be true. I'm not going to be true to who I am.
Yeah.
But I agree that it's important to be honest about how you feel about things, and to stand in your truth. But I'm hoping that if I am awarded the opportunity to be the next Miss USA, hopefully maybe next Miss Universe, that I can speak on the issues that I care about, but also be able to listen
Yes.
to people
Yeah.
who have opposing views that I have. And then, let's create a dialogue. Let's have a conversation. I am open to learning and understanding where other people come from, because like I said, we don't come from the same backgrounds. We don't have the same
Exactly.
experiences.
Yeah.
We're not taught the same type of things in school, where
Exactly.
like
Same
a
beliefs and
critical race
values.
theory is
Yeah.
a big issue right now. They're like trying to change the way that they teach the things in our country's history in school. So, how can I expect somebody from a completely different community to think and feel the same way I feel
Yeah.
about issues? And I think that's what's really important, is just to make sure that, whoever has the crown, that they are someone who is open and is understanding, but also like, you can speak your mind, but you don't need to like push your political ideologies on people.
Yeah.
You don't need to put down other people's political ideologies and values.
Yeah. I think there's a big difference between having your own beliefs and values, and then and there's a difference between that, which is a good thing, and then going around trying to make sure everyone believes what you believe, which is a completely different matter. And I
Right.
don't think that's a good thing at all. Let me just segue around to the comments, because we've had a few. Ralph here has said, good evening, Adrian and Cassie, and congratulations on winning Miss DC USA.
Thank you.
Now we have a millennial girl's life. I don't know who the name is, but she said it does take a village. Such a great role model. Sounds like a great coach. the one that made you cry sounds like a great coach. And then Reza, who I believe is the photographer, was the official photographer. She really gives off Miss USA and universe vibes. So you got a lot of support there. I think it's interesting. We all look for different things in a coach, and I used to be a tennis coach, and I came from that school of sort of tough love. I mean, not really, but kind of. And it sounds like you might have gotten yourself a coach, sort of in the same mold. How do you find a good coach? Everyone wants to find a good coach. So how did you find your coach?
I don't believe in luck or chance. I'm a religious person, and it was really just like, a work of God. I had reached out to my modeling agent, and I was like, hey, do you know anybody who is in pageantry? And she was like, not really. But then I think like a couple days later, she had run into someone who she hadn't seen in like years. And he happens to be in pageantry, do photography. And then they were talking about me, and then she's like, I don't know if it could work, but like you could talk to him. He may be able to help direct you in the right direction. And so I hopped on a Zoom, and I talked to Reza, who is the photographer, and his now fiance. Her name is Kie Sims. She coaches, and she was just kind of breaking into coaching at the time.
Right.
And so I was just pitching myself. I was like, I really want to get into pageants. I'm just very enthusiastic to learn and to like, and this was like, I had no idea what I would have to be doing. I had like literally nothing. I just thought, help me figure out which dress to wear, help me be able to like answer on stage questions. If they ask like, why do you want to be like DCUSA, like world peace, like help me not be able to help me say more than world peace.
Okay.
So, and I just fell in love with my team. One thing about my coach is that she gives me 100% and then some. She is now my pageant mom. She is just very, just like, she is my tough love. And I think
Yeah.
that, having yes people on your team is not gonna do any good for you. She is not afraid to tell me what she really feels. And, sometimes I'm like, okay, cool. And sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm gonna need a minute because my ego is gonna need a minute.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just been so rewarding to work
Yeah.
with her, because I think that's also something, is that she is very outgoing, and some you could say a little too outgoing. um, but she helped me open up my shell, and I think that was like one of the ways that I've grown out of being an introvert,
Yeah.
is because you have to surround yourself with people who can help you grow.
Mm.
um,
Yeah.
and I've done that. Like I surrounded myself with very confident, very go getter women, successful women, people who are driven.
Mm.
And that's what's helped me kind of stay on my game, because I'm like, I have a lot of friends who work in government, who work in like the political advocacy, who are doing phenomenal things. And so like, I'm supporting them, but I'm also like, okay, she's doing that. Let me like, I should be doing something too. Like I should be trying to, and it's not necessarily like comparing yourself. It's more just like using them to inspire me as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Because like in like my onstage question, for example, was like, what is something that younger female generation should improve on for the future? And I said, I think it's really important that we don't be intimidated by each other, but like use that
Mm.
intimidation, because there's obviously something that we respect about that person. There's obviously something about them that, is good. And that's why we may be feeling intimidated or insecure about ourselves. But instead, like,
Yeah.
let like use that to like drive yourself, like
Yeah.
how like to like overcome whatever it is you feel like they're better at you at or something. And so, that's what I love to do with my friends, is just like be inspired by them and like root for them. And and I think that's like what a role model is. It's like
Mm.
creating a space for others to grow as well, and to like show them like what they can do to succeed in their own space.
Would you still consider yourself to be an introvert at heart? And I ask this because I, especially in school, was very introverted, and to this day, I'd still say I'm more introvert than extrovert. But people wouldn't believe it because, I'm talking to people all the time, and people say, "Oh, you're so outgoing, you're extrovert." I'm like, actually, no.
Right.
Sometimes there's nothing better than to go home and just hide away from the world. But I think it's really important for introverts out there to know you don't have to become extroverted to become successful, because as an introvert, very often you see, because you hear and see the people who are loudest, that just makes sense. So you think, oh, I have to be like them in order to be successful. But then I think I can't remember who it was a woman who gave a TED talk, and it was the power of being introverted or something like that. And she laid out so well, and the book, I read the book as well, the power of being introverted in terms of, creativity, and some of the most successful people in the world, you'd never know they were in the room, but they don't care. They're all right with that. So
Mhm.
would you still consider yourself to be introverted? Are we now extroverted, or are we now like that situational? I don't know, like that somewhere, that messy place in between. Where are we now?
I think it's definitely like an in between. And I think that's just how my life is. It's never just black and white, right?
Yeah.
Being introverted is really good though, because like, your social clock runs out and you're like, I want to be home now
Yeah.
instead of,
I get that.
and that's good, because I think it's like, really important. And, I had to learn. My boyfriend always tells me, he's like, you say yes to too many things. You need to say
Oh
no to
yeah.
some stuff
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
rest,
Yeah.
and it's important because like it's important we maintain our health, our mental health.
Mm,
And so being able to like, not have that FOMO, that fear of missing out, and just be home and
yeah.
just allow your body to kind of like recharge, allow yourself to
Mm,
like re-strategize and like, regroup, figure out like what your next steps are, is really important. Because like if you're just go
mm,
go go and you don't have any time to like to breathe, to process, to like recover, then like then you like slow down, you get sick, like it's just kind of like a tumbling effect of issues. So
Yeah.
I do love that I'm, in addition to being out there and et cetera, that I'm also perfectly okay sitting on the couch watching Netflix in the dark. So, it's a balance. You need a balance, but, respect to those people who need to be the loudest person in the room at all times, and that's just their personalities. And I think that it is
Yeah.
important, like you said, to make sure people know that you don't have to just be that person in order to be successful. Not at all. Like you can
Yeah.
be like me where you turn it on, you turn it off.
Yeah.
But it's like use it as like keep it in your arsenal and use it at your disposal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what's your favorite way to recharge? I mean, you already said the Netflix. I think it's funny that you mentioned in the dark that it has to be in the dark when it's lit. It's too much stimulation. But what's your favorite way to switch off?
Yeah, like I love some Netflix and I love some comfort food. I don't know if you probably saw my social media after every pageant, I have to go and get a burger.
I did see that.
It may be a little cliche, but it's just my little reward. Um, for all the hard work. I feel like it hits all the food groups. You have some like dairy, you have some meat, you have some wheat, you have some veggies.
It hits all the things that you've been denying yourself probably in the lead up to the pageant.
It's all the things. No, exactly. Yeah. It is all the things that I have not been able to have. But yeah, I love to do that. I love spending time with my family. I have created like such a wonderful family here in DC who has been my huge support. So, and we're very big on like family events and stuff like that. So just pure fun. Like, I don't have to be like on type of things. It's like the best way to recharge.
What are we watching on Netflix?
We are watching, I was just watching Love is Blind. I am, okay. I love reality shows. I love reality shows, especially the dating ones, even though, most of the relationships don't work out, but it's pure entertainment. Like I'm rooting for you, but I'm also just like here for the tea and for the drama. But I'm also like, Netflix just added Mindy Project, and I'm a huge Mindy Kaling fan because I used to love watching. I mean, I still watch it, but like I loved her on The Office. Yeah. So I love like I like dry humor, like Parks and Rec and like Modern Family, like those kind of like documentary type, and even like Abbott Elementary. I don't know if you've ever seen that one. They just got a bunch of awards recently, like last year, I think. But it was just so just stuff like that. Just comedy. I like comedies.
It's interesting we talk about, burgers and then talk about reality TV, because I've always sort of reality TV as sort of the junk food of TV. Like it feels good at the time, but afterwards you just go, what am I doing with my life? Have you heard of a show called Married at First Sight?
Yes, I am very familiar with Married at First Sight. You can say too familiar. I will never go on one of those shows, but I will always watch it. One of my family members said that he's like, if I ever end up on a reality show, I will know that, I have not been. I have to reevaluate my life. But I'm like, that's bottom. Right. I'm like, that's a little harsh. That's a little harsh. But I don't know. It's just pure entertainment. And I always wonder, like you really want to like marry a stranger, like you really don't. You really like marrying a stranger, like on reality show, like with all these people watching. But I applaud them. It is a big leap. It is not easy to do. It is not easy to do.
It's certainly not. It's not easy to do. I don't know if I'd applaud them. I mean, it's not easy to do, but jumping out of a plane without a parachute is also not easy to do. Doesn't mean it's a smart decision. But I find it fascinating, people who watch it and then are so surprised when, two strangers get married and then 3 months later they broke apart. I'm like, you're surprised? How can you be surprised by this? Because so many of the pageant community got into Married at First Sight, and then there's Love Island, and there's quite a few pageant girls who go onto these shows, especially in the United Kingdom, in the UK. But yeah, I just see it as a junk food of TV. So that's how we that's not like a good way of unwinding. Just before we get to the final 10, because we've been on for a while, I always like to give you guys a chance to give shout outs to people who've been supporting you along your journey. So if you want to take a minute and just make sure you don't forget anyone, because I'm sure you got a lot of people to thank. So anyone you want to give a shout out to for supporting you?
Yeah, I'll start first with my director, Chelsea, and managing director, Cordelia. Thank you so much for taking me on as the next Miss DC USA. I'll talk about my village. Thank you so much, Reza Nation, Kia Sims, our reigning beauties, my coach, my hair lady slash hairstylist slash just hair guru, Miss Diane. She has a salon called Cole Stevens. Her and her team have just been phenomenal at just making sure I feel confident in my hair and everything. Thank you so much, Reggie. He is my trainer. He has this lasso company. I wear 35 to 45 pounds of weight every time I work out. Just building up strength. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Joy. My modeling agent, Kingsley Model Management, has just been so amazing and helpful to me. And just thank you to my family. Thank you so much, Miss Sherry, Chris, Mr. Terry, Miss Diane, Miss Donna, Miss Kendra. Thank you so much. And thank you so much to my mom and dad for loving and supporting me and always like holding me down and making sure that I feel appreciated and loved. And thank you so much, Anna. I could spend another extra hour talking about everybody, but I just want to say that it really does take a village. And I'm so thankful to my village and all the people who have, invested in me financially, or with their service or just with their love and support and their, everything that I am is because of all the people who have shown me their support. And I'm just endlessly thankful.
You brought up one thing that I did actually want to talk to you about, and I forgot. It's at lasso. The balls. These weighted. Now, because I've been stalking your social, and I've seen multiple Instagram reels of you wearing these weights. They look like metal balls is the only way that I can describe them, and they're chained around your waist. And I have not seen a single workout video of yours where you look like you're enjoying yourself. I saw one video where you just look thoroughly unimpressed. You're wearing the weights around your waist. You're stepping up into one of those big foam cubes with a plate, looks like a 20, 40 pound weight above your head. And you just look like you're ready to punch someone out. Is it as fun as it looks?
No, it is more fun. I actually just came back from a workout. This was my first workout since I won. I give myself a little grace period to enjoy and indulge. But yeah, it is. I always tell my trainer, I'm like, hey, can you film me because he it's for his promotion for his lasso. And I'm like, can you film me in the beginning of the workouts when I'm not gross and sweaty, when I'm I'm still a little bit cute and I'm a little bit I don't look like I'm exhausted.
He didn't seem to get the memo.
His thing is he's like, I want to take you on the brink of giving up.
That's what it looks like.
And then I want to pull you back. And that's literally what he said to me. And I was just like, okay, great. This is what I signed up for, I guess. But you know what? It worked out because last year I got the swimsuit award. So, it's
okay.
It's if it's not broke, don't fix it. I don't but it's I don't look happy. I haven't got those influencers who look really cute while they work out.
Oh,
and they're smiling and they're dancing and they're just so cute in their outfit. I'm not that person. I'm very much the opposite of that, probably because I look like I'm gasping for air. But it's a good workout. I'll just say that. That's why afterwards when I drive home, I feel so happy because that's over. Like I feel like I've accomplished the world. I feel like I'm on top of the world. I've gone through, and they're only an hour. It's only an hour of that, and I'm oh goodness.
An
But
hour is a terribly long time, depending on what you're doing. Like if you don't have oxygen for an hour, that's a very long time. But
right.
I just thought it was so funny because I figured it must have been your trainer who's taking the video, and I'd be like, well, don't you want to take a video of her, like when she's looking like super cute, got the outfit on? But every video, like you don't look just unhappy. You look like you're ready to kill somebody. And you're like, there's one where you dragging a sled, and then you're sprinting. But in every video, it's not pageant face. It's not a face you'd ever want to show on the pageant stage. You genuinely look very angry and annoyed that you had to be there. But I guess it worked. It did work.
It works, but you know what? That's the realness of it that I want to show, though. Like,
Fair.
this is the real work of like getting
Yeah.
physically ready for a pageant. It is not always cute. Like I don't have makeup on. I'm sometimes like, I'm sweaty. Like it is not a cute process, but that's what people need to know, that like that's what I want to show. I'm like this, I'm a real person, and I'm not naturally like super thin and lean. I have to work for it. I have to make sure that, I eat right and I work out and I treat my body like a temple, and, give it the nutrients and what it needs so that it can look the way it does. But it's good to know that that is my perception. Maybe I will have to nudge him. Maybe I'll have to nudge him a little better.
Maybe just
like, can you add a filter?
Like 80,
add a
80
really
20.
thick filter.
Have an 80-20 balance. Just like have 20% where you can just do this and you're like, yeah, look, I really enjoyed my workout. That sort of thing. Because at the moment it's 100%. You look really annoyed to be there. It's like, I'm gonna kill you. You're making me do this, and there's one where you look right at the camera, and I swear to God, like if anyone ever looked at me like that, I'd be like, okay, I'm just going over here. Like that's not a look you want to see.
He'll have me like wear that weight, and then he'll like, and you know what? I'm in the gym there's like, it's at Gold's gym.
Yeah.
And there's like tons of, guys who are like lifting and all this stuff.
Of course, it's Gold. Yeah.
Right. And so he'll like, I'm pushing the sled, and I remember like these guys were pushing the sled, and they only had like 245 pellets on there. And then he came and he put like 6 on there, and he's like, okay, push it. And then I was like, but the guys got to do, they got to do something else. And he's like, why are you asking questions? Because my trainer is also a New Yorker. So he's very blunt and he's very short. He's just like, just push it. And I'm like, I'm trying to talk my way out of it. And he's like, why are you still talking? Why are you not moving? So I'll push it, and then he'll be like, okay, give me 50 burpees. And I'm just like, can I just have a second? It's like, can I have a water break? And he's like, no. So he's just like, the hour feels like an eternity. And then he's also like standing there with his phone recording me while I'm doing it. That's why I don't look happy. That's why I'm not smiling like, oh, I love being healthy. I love working out. Like, this is so fun. No, I'm at my limits. I'm at my limits.
At my wit's end.
Right.
All right. I don't know if you can answer this question, but which coach has caused you more mental meltdowns, your pageant coach or your trainer? They both sound pretty hardcore. So who's caused more breakdowns?
Oh my gosh. I'd have to say my pageant coach, only because my trainer, because like I will go work out and like yes, the process is like a lot, but like it's also a stress relief for me.
Sure. Okay.
But yeah, my pageant coach, because she does like everything. She was helping with my image. She was helping with my walk. She was helping with my questions. She was helping with my social media. So it's like she was like wearing all these hats for me.
Yeah.
And so that means that she's being critical on all these different and for all these different things. But she's being critical because she cares. But there was this one time during walking pattern practice, and I like a certain type of music. I like R&B, I like pop, I like soca, I like those type of I don't really listen to much country, but there's some sort of songs I like, but it's not really my strong suit. And I remember she was like, you need to learn how to walk to any song, because you don't know what type of song they're going to play. Like you
That's
can't just
fair.
walk to
Okay.
Beyonce all the time because
Yeah.
they may not play Beyonce. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, whatever. So she played, and I was having like a rough day. I think I was stressed out about work or something else. And she put on this country music song. And I remember I just started crying because I was just like, so I was like, why did you put this song on? You know, I don't know this song. Like, do you want me to be unhappy? Like, and she was just like, she was just laughing at me. And I was like, I am very like, and so it was just like, it was like so silly of me because I'm like, the song was actually a very good song. And, in hindsight, I was just being a little much, I was just stressed out. But, it's just she does those things like because she pushes me and she's like you need to make sure you can push through because
Yeah, that's
having the
fair.
crown and being a leader, like you are not going to have times, you're not going to have many breaks, you're not going to be able to
Yeah.
like say, hey, I need a rain check. You need to be able to power through. And I think that's one thing I love about working with her. She taught me how to push through and how to
Yeah.
like not let things stress me out and just to like continue to like be able to give like 100% of yourself as much as you can and like give it like go all out.
Mm.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure she's watching, so I'm sure she will love that I said that she
Have
stressed
words.
me out the most. So thank you. Now I have to go talk to
Yeah.
her. She'll be like, excuse me.
Hey, look, there's a reason I asked you that question after you gave the shout outs, okay? I
Right.
do know
Okay.
what
Oh,
I'm doing.
there was a
But
plan. There was a plan. Yes.
I just have this, that's a hilarious image just for you to be there, hear country music, and then burst out into tears. I mean, I know that some people don't like country music, but that reaction is slightly extreme. I hope that you never become a coach yourself one day, because I feel like you've had so much angst put on you that if you ever become a coach, you're going to be, oh, just wait. So, that
100%. I am I feel like I'm just going to be like, okay, do it this way. Why aren't you doing it this way? You need like very nitpicky, etc. But like, I mean, also being on the other side, I like as someone who is on the side of someone who gets much critiques, I can also like I know like how that person could be feeling. But
yeah,
I mean it's all tough love and it's all
of
necessary.
course, of course, yeah.
We're building up somebody. You can't do that without a little pressure.
Of course. Final question before we segue to the final 10. How much would you enjoy getting to train your trainer? Like if she was on the other foot and you got to train him for just one session and he had to do everything you told him to and he wasn't allowed to talk back, how much would you enjoy that?
Oh my goodness, I would love that. It's actually funny you say that because I was meeting with him to work out one day
Yeah,
and he was finishing up his workout. And I was like,
yeah.
I walked past and I saw him and I texted him, I was like, why are you taking so long to finish your reps? Hurry up, chop, chop. Because that's what he
Oh.
says to me. He's always like, chop, chop, come on.
Uh-huh.
Like, because I'll try and talk to him to try and like distract him from like giving me stuff to
Yeah,
do.
I know. Yep. Yep.
And I'm like, hurry up. Like, why are you running so slow? So I would absolutely love that. So he needs a little taste, a little
A
taste of
taste of
it.
his own medicine.
Right. But no,
Oh, dear.
he's been so helpful and I'm so thankful to work with him and his lasso company, even though it is stressful. But you know what? If you see another video, I'm gonna make sure to do this afterwards. I'll
Yeah, I was
smile
just going to
more.
say, remember what you're saying now. Next time he's taking a video of you and you feel like you want to throw the plate at his head, just remember that you said that you do enjoy it and that it's good stress relief. And then try and smile. Try and break out a
Right.
smile.
Oh my goodness. Yes, I will.
Good luck with that. All right, let's go to the final 10. Number one, these are just random questions. Number one, what is your favorite word?
I have to say my favorite word is banter. I love to like just kind of go back and forth and have like some playful banter. My boyfriend says that he'll be right about something and then he'll be like, why can't you just say I'm right? And I'm like, well, maybe I don't like 100% feel like you're right, even though like you may be right. And he's just like, is always like beating himself over the head with like a stick. Like, why can't I get this girl to just be like, yes, good idea? But it's just playful, and I do it out of just fun. So just a healthy banter keeps things interesting.
I feel like he's never had an argument with a girl before. If he's asking, why can't you just say that I'm right? I'm like, don't you know how this works? Like,
What's
have you
that
ever won
supposed
one
to
of these
mean?
arguments? You know exactly what that means. It's like he just has to, yep, some you can win and some you just, yeah, don't go there. All
Yeah,
right.
maybe
So
you should talk to him.
I'm like, dude, how well has this worked for you in the past? Are we learning from our previous failures? Yes, no, maybe so. All right. Number 2, what is your least favorite word?
Least favorite word. I'd have to say maybe like disappointment. I feel like sometimes in situations when things don't go your way, like go according to plan, it's like really, really easy to like be disappointed in yourself. But, you know, I like to think about like, for instance, last year when I didn't win Miss USA, it could have been really easy for me just to be like defeated and stuff. But, instead I was like, okay, I was able to get this close. What can I do to like elevate myself? So with every like failure, I think there's a way to learn and to grow. And so to look at it from that angle is important.
Number 3, in life, what gets you excited or what turns you on?
Um, Something that gets me excited, which would have to be my job. I love being on Capitol Hill. I love working in a space where I can use my voice to talk about issues that matter. I can advocate for people about issues that I care about and that affect them. And it's something that's very like reactive and very relevant and, being timely and then also like being able to be a part of history.
Number 4, what turns you off?
I would have to say cold weather. I am, I'm originally from California, so I love the sun and the warmth right now in the Maryland, Washington D.C., Virginia area. We have a lot of like overcast and like cold, rainy days, and I like to think of myself like as a plant. I love the sun. Like I get, photosynthesis from the sun, just like because I like seasonal depression is a real thing. And
yes, definitely.
it is. So it's just like when it's a beautiful day outside, you just like, you just want to get out the house, you want to be outside, you want to go do stuff, so cold weather is just cold and rainy. It's just like, I'm not excited.
Have you ever been to the UK?
I have not yet. I
Don't.
have some.
I come from Australia,
I've
where
heard
we
it's
have
not
lovely
all bad.
sun. Well, nothing against the people, but when you say seasonal depression, I always thought, oh yeah, come on, what are you talking about? And then as an Aussie who loves his sun, I went over there and stayed there for about a month or two during their winter. And not only was it cold, the whole weather was just soggy. Like it doesn't make you want to go out. It won't necessarily be raining, but there's just a lot of moisture in the air. Like, no, I can't do that. So if you think of yourself as a plant, don't go to the UK. You're not going to have a
Okay,
good time.
noted. I'll save my ticket.
Number 5, what sound or noise do you love?
I have to say what I love is soca. It's a Caribbean type of music. It's just like happy. It's just about like, they play it for carnival. It's just happy, uplifting, life, celebrating, community, like, family. That one, like that always gets me in the mood. And that's when I have my headphones in during the trainings. That's usually what I'm listening to because I'm trying to stay happy while my trainer is trying to make me unhappy.
You might need to tell your face.
You really make me second guess me. Maybe I should tell them we can't film anymore because people think I look really angry.
I tell you what, you go back and you have a look and you tell me if I'm wrong. I'm happy to admit when I'm wrong, but I'm just looking at them going, she looks so angry all the time. And there's one video, I can't remember when it was. You literally look at the camera like it's like, you better put that thing down or I'm throwing this at you. So,
oh my goodness.
And that's whilst you're listening to your happy music. So God forbid you ever, the beats or whatever went flat and then you just had to do the workout. Oh, jeez.
Right. And then my what I don't like, I won't say country music because it's growing on me, but I a friend of mine was playing heavy metal one day, and I was just like,
Mhm.
"Oof, this may not be for me." So I'm gonna have to say that one would have to be would something I don't like to
Okay.
hear.
That I described. I think I heard death metal. I think it was death metal or thrash metal or some kind of metal. It wasn't rock and roll. It was even heavier. And I described it to my brother as it sounds like someone fell down the steps whilst holding a drum kit. That's what
Oh,
it sounded like. It wasn't. It's just not my thing. If you love it, you love it. But
right.
it wasn't my thing.
I could
Anyway,
probably
moving
pass.
on. Yeah. Number 7. If you could have any one superpower, what would you pick and why?
I would pick, I would like to hear people's thoughts. I think that that would be very helpful with,
Mhm.
being a pageant girl, being able to know what the judges are thinking.
It would.
That would be helpful. Or for politics, it would help to know
Oh
what
yeah.
politicians are thinking. So maybe we can get some bills passed. But yeah, I'd have to say that.
Okay. Number 8. What job or career other than your own would you most like to attempt?
Um, I'd have to say I'd love to be a Miss Universe one day. This is something that I have been building towards for a few years now, and when I look at where I started to where I am now, it's just like
Mm,
young Cassie just never. I never saw this coming. I never like saw this happening. I always looked at those girls as like unattainable, and
yeah.
or just like just not even that, just more like not even an option,
Yeah.
um but as I've gotten wiser and older, I'm just kind of like, I can be this person, and I do have a goal, and I do have, I want to use that organization to talk about my platform, cancer awareness, because this is like an issue that affects everybody. Like
Mm,
everyone knows someone or indirectly knows someone who's dealing with
yeah.
cancer, and there's never enough voices talking about this issue.
Yeah. Absolutely. I lost both my grandparents to cancer, so you're
Oh my
never far
God.
removed from it, unfortunately. Oh, it was a long time ago. Number 9. What job would you definitely not like to attempt?
Mm, what job would I not like to attempt? Um, I'd have to say anything that would require me to have to be outside, because I don't like cold weather. Like when you see like people, what is like those crosswalk people, like those
Oh
like
yeah,
police
holding
officers who
the
are outside. Yeah,
yeah.
like I remember I was driving to work and it was raining, and you
Mm,
know they had to like help these kids like walk across the street, because they need to
yeah.
stop traffic. I was just like, oh, you poor thing. Like I wanted to give them an umbrella. I wanted to give them a warm blanket because it was just so gross outside. So I'd have to say that, like, any and anything that would require me to have to be outside at all times, regardless of the weather, like rain or shine. I just, if I could just do the shine part, then I'll be good.
I'm going to assume that from the sounds of things, you're a summer person, not a winter person.
I'm a July baby, and I
Oh,
will
same as
100%.
me.
Oh, really? What day?
26th. But the
Okay.
problem for me, it's the reason I hate my birthday is because it's always not only well, two reasons. One, it was always during exam period. So every time it was my
Mm,
birthday, I would have an exam. But number two, it's always in the middle of winter for us because we're in the southern hemisphere.
oh,
So
okay.
one of my goals is to have a birthday in the northern hemisphere so I can actually celebrate it properly and have a summer birthday.
Oh my goodness,
So,
yes, come to the States. We welcome you with open arms. Summertime in like July is
mm,
it's sticky and it's humid here,
I'd
in this
rather that
in this
than
area.
cold. I'd
Oh yeah,
rather that than the
anything,
cold.
anything than the
A
cold.
thousand, a thousand times. I'll come and join you for one of your workouts, and I can see, see how,
You
see
could
how
try
much
on the lasso too. You could try it on
I could, and I'm sure that I'll be even less cute than you. But believe me, I don't have a good workout face.
too.
Anyway, final question: if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I think I would want him to like welcome me with open arms and hug me and just say that he's proud of me. Emotions. I think it's just really hard, like I said, I feel like I've grown so much to get here. So many people doubting me, self-doubt. Ooh, sorry. So it's really important. Like I want to show that to other women, like the importance of being confident in yourself and being vulnerable, because I think when we're vulnerable, we allow ourselves to grow more, and we're able to connect with other people. When I started sharing the reasons why I got into cancer awareness, because my mom is a breast cancer survivor and currently battling a lymphoma brain tumor, it was like these doors opened up. Like I met so many people in the cancer awareness space who educated me, who helped me learn and helped me be able to advocate. The other day I was at this fashion show, and I was sitting backstage talking to one of the other models before we went on stage. And I was telling her, I'm going to be doing this pageant soon. This is my platform. And she was like, oh my goodness, I lost my mother to cancer. My sister, she works with the American Cancer Society in their Washington, D.C. office. And, she is like one of their like executive directors. And would you like to connect with her? And I was like, that was for me was just like, God working in my life, because I was really just able to, have opportunity to like really do some serious work and advocate. So if I hadn't been vulnerable about what's going on in my life, then I would never have been able to have a conversation, would never have been able to like set up a meeting, and eventually meet with these people who I can learn from and who I can use my platform as Miss DC USA to raise awareness about this issue. So I think that, if God could just tell me that he's proud of me for just finally accepting myself, and being the best person I can be, then I would just, I would really feel like I did everything that I was supposed to do on earth.
Absolutely. Well, Cassie, on that note, it's been a ride. We've been on for a while, highs and lows. Congratulations once again, and thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful.
And best of luck with everything, especially explaining to your pageant coach and trainer everything that you were saying about them. I get to go away now. You need to have conversations with them. So enjoy that. But yeah, I will keep you on the line for just a sec whilst I hang up with the audience. But thanks to everyone for watching, and we will speak to you next time. Bye for now.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Sorority Access is now open. So if you'd like to join an amazing group of women and learn how to be the most powerful, confident, and impactful queen possible, head to thepageantsorority.com. I'll see you there, and see you in the next video.